Hi, everybody. It's another Monday. Super glad you're here. I know that we are approaching the Valentine's month, the month of the heart, the month of love, and all that kind of good stuff, but we're not quite there yet. So instead, we're going to talk about some other things that affect our heart very, very deeply. And that's having the courage to move on after a difficult situation. In the Zoom booth with me today, I have Germana Rovinelli. I knew I was going to get this wrong. Rovinelli, Germana Rovinelli. Hey, like I told you before we got started, it's a compliment for me to screw up your name. Trust me on that. Thanks for being on the program today. How are you?
I'm well, Kathy. I really appreciate you inviting me to be here with you today and your guests.
You know, it's so lovely to have you here. I've known you for a number of years through community, and when I recently noted that you had published a book that is really near and dear to so many people's hearts, I just wanted to talk to you about it and have a good conversation about what all that looks like. So why don't you give us a little bit of heads up as to, what's been going on in your world and what led you to write this fantastic book?
My world as such, kind of come to a time in my life where I have more time to live a bit more harmoniously, like less pressure, less jumping through hoops, less stress, less anxiety, and more sort of deliberate time with some form of grace, I guess is a nice way of putting it. Yeah. I'm still doing all the things that I have been doing for decades, but I've given myself permission to kind of take it to another place without an agenda or an expectation, just saying, okay, this is where I'm being led and follow that path. So currently I teach dance. I teach a jazzercise program, which is a community privilege here. And I do that as a gift back to Nanaimo because, this town was where I showed up as a single mom, getting off of social assistance, living in a trailer. And, I taught fitness classes, and then I became a personal trainer, and then I became a clinical hypnotherapist. And then I started to unravel some of my own odd behavior that I didn't understand. And that's just been an ongoing process. So what I'm really kind of at a place now where I really feel like I'm just more present and I'm not in the negativity that was so imprinted on my psyche from such a young age that I couldn't have protected myself. And it just feels like another layer. And today I'm in a place where if someone does something awful, I'm like, I just let the emotion go. Oh, let it go and sit in my place of just as a witness to the fact that I'm a soul in a body. And that might sound a little bit too woo-woo, but that's my spiritual practice today.
It's not woo-woo. It's, there's so many people, and I'm one of them, who believe that we are in a human body with a spiritual existence. And sometimes we're in a spiritual existence in the human body. And sort of we're constantly trying to transform and grow and learn. And if we're not transforming and growing, if we're staying in that stagnant place, then really we never truly know what harmony feels like. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious about you because the last time that I saw you were competing in bodybuilding competitions. Mm-hmm. And I think it was actually just before COVID that you won one of the great titles. Tell us a little bit about that experience.
I've done that a few times in my like the 50th year of my life, 51. I love a dream with a deadline.
Yes.
With the finish date. And yes. I needed to do it to see if I could actually still do it. I had not trained or competed for about 10 years because I'd had a really bad car accident. And it was one of my amends. Like, I made a list of amends. How am I going to take care of Germana? And one of my goals was to compete again. And my girlfriend said, Germana, you wrote this down and it's been a while. And so she kind of pushed me, and then I'm like, oh, darn, she's right. And she loves me. And so then I did some digging and I hired a very, hardcore kind of intense trainer. And I competed and I won the whole show. And when I saw my pictures, I cried. And I had to see a therapist. I saw a therapist, I think it was 3 or 4 weeks later. And
Really?
that's the first time I could actually say I was proud of myself. Because I was afraid
Wow.
I was afraid no one would like me if I actually went, I did that. I'd been so programmed to look after everyone else at my expense that if they're threatened by me, that it's my fault or I'm bad. It was like, that was the twisted message of my childhood. I was not allowed to be happy unless you gave me permission to be happy. So that really, that clouded that for me for a while. And then I blew the pictures up that I really love and put them in my studio. And,
Good
I'm
for
like,
you.
that's me.
Well, because when I saw it on Facebook, I'll be honest with you, when I saw it on Facebook, I was gobsmacked, right? You're in your, at the time you were in your late 40s, early 50s. I turned 60 this year, and I think to myself, like, holy crap, like this is what getting older and having wisdom actually looks like. It's stepping outside of your own bounds and doing something really challenging and really difficult. So I was cheering you on the whole time and so completely excited for you when you won. And I know that's not really the topic of today's conversation. You're actually a published author now, but there's a road that got you to the place where you could sit this down, memoir it out, have the conversation with yourself, face all the things you needed to face.
Wow.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
So let's break open that journey, if you don't mind. Like, some of you sort of alluded it a little bit when you were talking about your child life, right? And obviously I'm not throwing you under the bus or anything. I don't want any intimate details that would, but you said something very prudent. You said you weren't allowed to be happy unless you were given permission to be happy. And I think that's a really common feeling for a tremendous number of women and men, but a lot of women. And only until when they get into their late 40s, early 50s and 60s do they start to kind of grab a handle on all of that. So if you don't mind, can you share a little bit about that with us?
Well, I didn't know that was how I was set up. All I knew was that I was chronically anxious and nervous, looking for the next thing to go wrong.
Yeah.
Expecting to be rejected all the time because I was chronically rejected by my parents. So that created an over-functioning and over-performing, trying to organize the furniture on the Titanic, knowing that eventually the Titanic's going down and I'm going with it. So it created I think it served me for decades, but it wasn't out of love. Some of it was out of love and passion, but some of it was just, please love me. What do I need to do so you will love me, so I'll be okay? And then deep inside, not believing that it would ever be true love or honest, or that I was going to be used and thrown away. I don't know if that's a horrible way of putting it, but
not at all, actually.
I spent most of my life feeling like an orphan, unwanted, unless I was taking care of, being thrown under the bus by my family on some level, being a servant to my family, never being good enough, and it's never enough, and I'm not enough. So then the defiant part of me went, blank you, I'm going to do what I want. You don't like me, want me anyway. So I'm just going to do that. And I became like that. And that, for whatever reason, kept me going. And, but it's been a weird life. Like, I look at it, I'm like, most people wouldn't have survived. I went to a therapist a while ago. It was the last therapy session I've had. And I told him a little bit about my life and what I had endured. And he says, and that my goal was to meet a good man so I could actually be in a real relationship and feel safe, like for real, right?
Totally hear you. I got your back there. I understand completely.
Yeah. So he said, most people that have been through what you've been through are the people on the street pushing around shopping carts with teeth missing, and they don't make it, that kind of trauma. And he said, people like that don't survive. And he goes, but you're here. And he says, you're a very loving, psychologically minded woman. He says, you're not a biker. You might ride a bike, but you're not a biker. And he goes, you're misrepresenting yourself. Yeah. And he said, you're a unicorn. Unicorns don't exist, and yet here you are. And he gave me a quick lecture about what I needed to do different. And he was right. But I was so surprised because I had been used to being discarded in some way. most of my life. So my self-esteem was definitely vulnerable. I'm definitely, I was still looking for validation outside of myself.
Yes.
Ugh.
Understood. Yeah, you bet.
And my whole life has been like that. And, you know, and then there's these people that would pocket in and go, you know, they would say things to me that were very flattering. And I'm like, well, don't let your head get big. Like, don't get too full of yourself. And then come back to, well, who are you and what do you stand for and what do you want? And what is your life charism, which is what is your gift in your life? What are you bringing to this planet? And
Exactly. Yeah,
my,
you bet.
my deepest goal has always been to teach people how to love themselves. And it's been through what I teach and what I do physically, like in the sandbox with people, as well as through whether it's, you know, meditation or whatever it might be. And through modeling, like you can be in whatever vintage you're in and you can still live your life with, you know, as a flower, as a lotus growing out of the mud, right? And
Yeah,
years and
you're so
years
right.
ago, well, but some of us, like, we believe it's over. We think we're 50 or wherever we are, and our brain goes, oh, you're old now. And I'm like, stop it. Like, but
Well, I think we're a lot. I think we're a lot different now than we used to be, though, in all fairness. I mean, I go back to, you know, even 50 years ago, sorry to say it that way, but the Ida Clarkson show and what a 50, I mean, people would be sitting in front of the television in their 50s and their 60s, and they were kind of looked like traditional grandmothers, and they, you know, I look at women now, specifically women, men too, but more so women, 40, 50, 60, 70. I mean, some of my best friends are 75 years old, and you would swear that those women, I kid you not, were like 45. Like we have a different way of viewing our authentic selves these days than we ever have before. But I noticed that when you're talking about that part of not feeling like you mattered, right? I'm paraphrasing, but
sure.
not feeling like you mattered to a certain extent. And I'm noticing that there seems to be a shift in this last couple of years, especially because of COVID-19, where people are starting to notice just how anxious that we are as individuals. And I see a kind of, I don't know if you see this too, but I sort of see this trend of people that are having this great awareness of, what am I anxious for? Why? Right? Do you feel that you naturally came to that place? Or like, what was there something, and again, I don't want to be voyeuristic. I'm just curious, like, there had to come a moment where you said, I am so freaking done with this feeling of not being worthy. What might that have looked like for you?
And for me, the backtrack piece around the anxious piece is I know that we don't heal if we don't feel safe.
Yes,
That puts
so
us
true.
in fight, flight, or faint. I mean, and I think I've lived my whole life in some variation of that. A lot of it in faint, like the deer just waiting. You know, is it safe? Am I going to get shot when I walk out on that street? And I know that when people are in that anxious place, they're more likely to be, I call it the red dog zone. They just attack and they
Yes.
attack. They're not attacking me per se. I'm just an easy target. So for me to kind of manage that and unpack it, I learned to really create a very specific healing practice that I start every morning. And I've been doing it for years, but there was a while that I just felt like, you know, the animal that had been tasered too hard, too many times.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I found, you know, different ways of creating some healing for my nervous system so I could find me back, that I wasn't in some hyper, you know, vigilant, you know, they're going to hurt me. So, you know, for me, some of it comes in layers. And now when something comes in and my brain goes, I'm going to be attacked, they're going to be mad at you, I go, let the feeling out. I actually have a spot in my body that it comes from. And I just say, I surrender this. I let this go. I give it to my creator energetically. And I just say, I let this go. And I give my body a chance to like run the energy. And then I go, I'm soul. And I actually have an image and a symbol for that in my body. And I'm like, the rest of it, forgive me for saying, is garbage. Yes. It's a way that the ego needs to feel safe, in control, to keep the past alive. And I call that like trying to keep a corpse alive. You know, the closet, someone hurt me, and I'm just going to add some oxygen to this, you know, and then try to keep it real. And I think most of the people with COVID, we've been lied to, we have been gaslit, we have been all of these things. We have been abused like a child would be abused by their parents. So if there's any unfinished business, it's going to come up.
Yes.
And so then it gets transferred to COVID, but it's an old unfinished wound that the subconscious is trying to pump out. And if we don't have the skills to do it, then we just, add some medication, have some, marijuana or whatever the deal is.
Yeah. Find something to mask the pain. Let's not get into it. Let's
doesn't work.
find blame. Let's push it forward.
Well, and then you're not present. Your true self is still hiding somewhere. Your natural, beautiful, articulate, sweet, beautiful self.
Yeah.
It's hiding somewhere. And for me, it's like I promised myself that I would do whatever I could to give myself what my parents could not give me, and to heal what my addictive patterns and my running away robbed me of. And, it's been a long run. It's been a long go. And then sometimes I would feel sorry for myself because I spent a lot of time alone. And then I'm like, I look at what other people have accepted as normal, and I'm like, I'm a unicorn.
Brings you right back to being a unicorn, because there's something to be said for that as well, right? I think that a lot of people have the struggle of what their self-identity is supposed to be, right? You know what I mean? Like, it's like, it's either, we have these labels that are constantly attached to us, she's a hard worker, or she's a, she's a this, or she's a that, or she's a this. And so the story that we tell ourselves over and over and over again can really be harmful and detrimental to our soul and to our spirit. But I'm so confused at the same time in the whole process, because I feel like in my own personal journey, which I'm not going to get into in the moment, but in my journey, it's like, just when I think I got it, bam,
gone.
You know what I mean? Like, does that happen for you as well? And what is the tool? What is the tool that we need to take to task to help us come down from that boom moment?
And it depends in what context.
Of course.
If it's with somebody, and it's a like a pattern of triangulation, or a pattern of intimidation or cruelty, or you have to do this to be accepted, I cut that person out, because I'm like, they'll never be happy, they are abusive, and I've had enough of that. And otherwise I go, I ask myself, what's my behavior for? Who am I looking after? What's the secondary gain that I'm trying to get out of this behavior? Like, what am I really about? And then I know if I'm manipulating, if I have a desire for something to turn out a certain way, and I need to just say, I surrender, you will look after me. And, there's an old saying, like, show me where you want me. I'm just going to tilt this up a tiny bit.
You bet.
And let go of control. Like, otherwise I can't do it, because my head will come up with everything that's wrong. I'm lonely, I'm this, I'm that. I don't get to see my son anymore. He lives over there. There's all these things that come up with a complete storyline about why I'm, a sad, human being. And in reality, I have one more day alive. That's it. Today,
this moment.
And I love it. Some of the stuff I've listened to, I might have to let my dog out. I'm not sure. The fellow, like, from the Four Agreements, he says that every day we're an artist, and what kind of a day are we painting with our thoughts?
Exactly.
And I really like that.
Such a wonderfully brilliant anecdote. Listen, why don't you go let your dog out? I'll do a quick station identification.
Thank you.
So no problem at all. So ladies and gents, thank you so much for tuning in to CHOY 101.7 FM. I am with Germana Rovinelli. We are in the process of having a discussion about her new book called We Do Recover. We're going to break that open in just a few minutes. But before we do that, let me just give you a couple heads up. So number one, Shine 2023 is already being produced and effective for immediate release in September, on September the 18th Shine 2023 will take place once again at the convention center. So that's super exciting. I'm so happy. Last year, a whole whack of money was raised for AVI and for School District 68, and one of the programs that helps people who are making transitions in their life to do other things. And so it's just fantastic. And I'm really glad to be one of the first to announce that they are coming back, Shine 2023, on September 18th. So watch for tickets. It'll be a while yet, but you'll be watching for tickets for that. Also want to remind you, Shaw Spotlight, Cable 4, Cable 150, watch Act 3 right there. Always glad you do. So we've got some terrific guests, and please tune in and see us on Act 3 show. Of course, if you haven't already subscribed to our YouTube station, we know you want to, so make sure you push that little like button, like and subscribe, and share, share, share. You know, some of the guests that we have really are intimate in their storytelling. They share with us some life-altering experiences and life lessons that hopefully you will resonate with. I know I certainly do every time I hear them. And if you want to repeat them or share them to people who might not have these stations and can't maybe access CHLY, you know, check us out on iHeartRadio and Spotify, because you know what? We're there under Act 3 Media Productions again. All right. So Germana Rovinelli is back. We're going to go into her book. She's let her sweet, gorgeous little chihuahua out. Glad that you're back to the program. Thanks so much. And that worked out perfectly. Timing was excellent. Oh, I forgot to tell people to go get a piece of paper and a pen, because fairly soon, Germana is going to be able to give you some information on how you can get access to her book and perhaps some other wonderful features that she does, since she teaches Zumba on top of it, right? So thank you again. I'm glad you're here. You know, when I saw that you'd written a book, once again, as gobsmacked as I was to see you out there in incredible shape and winning the way you always do in life, I was so delighted as well to see that you've written a book to help people to kind of understand. The title is very poignant. We do recover. Why don't we talk a little bit about how you got to that title and what brought you to writing it all down? You know what I mean? Huge conversation.
Yeah. I love words that tell the actionable experience of that participation. Like, you know, when I created the name for my business, it was Able Body Consulting. That's what you get, an able body, right? And so I was always taught that the words need to tell the person what they're getting. So the name We Do Recover actually does come from a 12-step program that I have frequented for probably 31 years. And I loved it. And it was just like a validation. And it was about, like, even in the trenches, even in the losses, even in the tragedies, even in the, you know, the unbelievable, brutal hardships, that where there's a glimmer of light and a glimmer of hope and a desire just to, you know, hold on to that little bit of hope or faith, that it doesn't matter. I mean, yes, stuff happens, but we do, and we can recover if we get, you know, if we get behind ourselves and we let some people help us, and we let some people say, I'm holding space for you. The first time I had someone tell me specifically, like, hard to my face, you need to write a book, was when I got my divorce.
Yes.
The lawyer wants your story up until you met your husband and what happened, and then it's over, and he reads it and he goes, I just had no idea. I have so much respect for you, because he knows me as a fitness trainer as well, right?
Yes.
I have so much respect for you. I can't even believe it. And he goes, this is, you know, whatever he said, he's a bit intense, and he says, you need to write a book. And I'm like, I just want a divorce. You know, I was like, no way.
Yeah, close the book on that. Pardon the pun. Yeah. I am done.
But he meant it, and I could tell. And I knew that he had read a lot of different people's, you know, parts of their life. And then, you know, I'd had a couple of years had gone by, and I ended up in a really bad car accident where I had a spinal cord injury, and my nervous system was damaged, and all of these things. And it was really bad. And I limped for a long time. I couldn't do a lot. My thyroid was blown out. My endocrine system was blown out. I mean, I was a hot mess, and the medical system wasn't very helpful. So eventually one day I it was someone hit me head on. So I ended up with a
Dear
settlement.
Lord.
And I decided I was going to hire someone who specialized in childhood trauma online. Then I watched his YouTube videos and I'm like, I get this guy. He's making sense. He's talking my language. So I hired him. And of course they do your family of origin. And so, you know, so many sessions for this and this and this. And then I told him about the childhood and what my mother had been through, my father had been through, how they met, how they punished us. And he goes, Germana, you weren't traumatized, you were tortured. And he was so like in my face. And he said, yeah. And then he said, I've been doing this for 30 years. He owns quite a successful business in Carl's Beach or whatever the heck it is. And he said, I have never in my life heard the kind of intensity and trauma that you've been exposed to. And he goes, the butcher hung himself, which is part of the story. And then he goes, you need to write a book. You can help people. This story is incredible. And he just kept saying it. I looked at him. I'm like, I don't know how to write a book. And he goes, and the kind of person that you're going to fall in love with is a psychopath because that's what raised you. And I'm like, you know, I just spent $900 to be told that. I couldn't get away from him fast enough. That was his summary, right? And I'm just like, I'm like, oh my God. And about a year and a half later, I show up with my new boyfriend who's a psychopath, just like my dad. Like the unbelievable, like ripping limbs off you emotionally and acting like it's your fault, just cruel. And so then, you know, we did some counseling together here and there. And of course, he was acting out his, I'm so much better than you. And I'm smarter than you because I'm rich and you're not rich. And you're just a lowly working class girl. You're like a servant. I'm like paying you. So eventually he disintegrated. I had to hire people to get him to leave me because he would hoover back. He would leave. 3 months later, he would come back. And this went on for a couple of years. And so I was in so much pain. Like I had the desire to die at least 16 times a day. And one of my friends, who's also a therapist, I'm surrounded by a lot of women that are therapists. And she says, you don't want to die, you just want the pain to end. But I'm like, I don't know what to do. He won't leave me alone. I had to hire people to get him to leave me alone. And then he would still sit in front of my house in one of his muscle cars with his car idling, you know, at 10 o'clock at night, knowing that I could hear it and see it. He would stalk me like it was a piece of property, like I was a shoe that he used and then he'd throw away, very much like my family. Anyway, so then I'm speaking to this therapist who's, you know, I go back to the therapist. He goes, and I said, I can't afford you. I don't have that kind of money. It's US dollars. And he goes, well, you can see so-and-so and you need help because you have been severely narcissistically abused. And then I started working with her. And then I went back to the 12-step program for adult children and started to unpack it. And then I was introduced to, and I was pretty angry and pretty hurt and really confused because I thought I didn't know what to do different. No one taught me how to do it different. I didn't know different. But then someone introduced me to the pursuit of excellence.
Yes.
She gave me the first series for free.
Wow.
Yeah, it was given to me. And I went, if this isn't God, I don't know what is. And you know, 2 days later, I'm there and I'm listening about the subconscious mind. And I'm like, yeah, I understand that. But it's hard to be objective when it's yours.
Totally.
Seeing someone else, but all of a sudden I'm like, oh. And then I had wanted to write a book, but I didn't think I could because I knew I'd get lost. It's just like everything's flat, everything's everywhere. And so then I asked the lady who had helped me, her name is Goody Niosi. She's now married as a different name. Would she be my writer? She's a journalist and she's written a few of her own books. And first she said yes, then she said no because she was going to do something. And then a year and a half later, she showed back up and I saw her on Facebook. I said, can we go have a tea now? I'm going to circle around you.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Because I trusted her. She's German. She's gritty. She's seen it all. Nothing that comes out of my mouth is going to surprise her. So when I said, would you help me? Because I can't do it. I'm not strong enough. I need you to hold me through this. And she did.
Yeah.
And she did it. It was about 8 months. She would interview me over an audio, like over the phone, and she would ask questions like a journalist and ask questions and then pick different pieces. And then she would print it all off, like type it out, send it to me. Is this accurate? Is this accurate? That's how we did the whole thing.
Yeah.
And so we did the very first run, and it was, it was kind of sad because I was in a relationship with someone who says, oh, I want to marry you. I love you more than anybody. And, I'll do anything. And I want to be with you the next 30 years. And he love bombed me like a good narcissist does.
Absolutely.
Got me to buy in. So I attracted this. And then he went to work for months and months on end and wouldn't make the effort to come back and see me, but was busy racing off to see his mother and this person and this person. And I discovered his version of narcissism is called the neglectful narcissist. So I thought I found my soulmate. And I just found someone who was using me to make himself feel like he had someone to say, there's my girlfriend. See her on Facebook? That's my girlfriend. But we didn't spend quality time together. He did a great introductory, and then he neglected the relationship in such a way that I gave him more options, more time. And then eventually I said, I'm done. Like, if this is how you treat me on year 2, I can't imagine what year 5 would be like. I'm being starved for love. Again, childhood wound. And so I had him take his things and leave. And so, but that was how that part of that first book ended. And then a few years went by, COVID went by. I did more work on myself. And my son specifically said, please take my name out of that book. So I had it republished, taking his name out, but we added 3 more chapters about getting through COVID, doing the healing work, the inner work, the soul work, the deeper soul work. And that I'd love, met, I got the dog, online dating was so great. I got the Chihuahua. And then about 2 weeks later, I met a fellow that I think is a very high quality man. And we're still seeing each other, which is lovely. And so the second run, which is the second edition, which is the one that you saw me post about, was about, generational abuse, trauma, neglect, incest, all of it, and how it just sort of, one talks about it, but there's all of this evidence and behavior. Something's wrong. Something's wrong. These people fed their children to the wolves. Oh my God. And then the children are supposed to make sense out of that. How do you make sense out of that? The people that are supposed to protect you are not safe. They don't know how to love you, and they don't know how to keep you safe. And then I kind of learned about what my attachment style is. And when I understood that, I'm like, now I really get it. And then I started to heal my unconscious programming so I could actually feel secure and speak up and have boundaries and not jump when someone sends me a text and not think that it's my responsibility to make somebody happy if they're sad, or not feel that I need to have a comment on someone's post. I realized that I had been so used to creating an avatar of myself to survive so people would like me, so they wouldn't reject me, that I was a fraud to myself. I was not authentic, and I knew it. And I was like, why am I so upset? Why am I irritated? And I'm like, you're still trying to do what you think you have to do to survive. Your true self is still hiding over there. And it was like an unpacking. So when my emotions would spike, I'm like, okay, so there's feelings here. They're feelings. That's all they are. With that, if I want to put a word to them, I can put a word to them. But am I willing to let that go to whatever it is I pray to? Let that go. You handle that. I'm done. Let it go. Let it go. Let my body lighten, and then just say, I surrender. Show me where you want me. And boom, it's like all of a sudden I feel like I've been taken care of. And so it feels to me like it is a spiritual path. I had 2 different psychics tell me your book is going to become a movie. Now, only one of those ladies knew I had a book. This other lady, I'm taking a friend out for a tea leaf reading, and the tea leaf reader looks straight at me and she goes, you're going to get movie offers on your book. And the person that was with me had no idea that I'd written this book, because I got quiet about it because I had to make this other edition. And I'm looking and I'm like, okay. And I'm like, that's dodged off.
Right.
Right. And then I had a reading not too long ago with a woman that I've gone to on and off for probably 12 or 14 years. And that was just about maybe 14 days ago or something. And she went on about the book. She goes, it's a page turner. It's a memoir. People love success stories about women that have succeeded, that have come from nothing. And she goes, your success story, that's a page turner. I couldn't put it down. And she was like, she said, you got to send that in for a movie. And I said, well, I was reaching out to Dr. Gabor Mate, but he's too busy. It illustrates everything he talks about, all his teachings.
Totally. Love Gabor.
In that
Yeah,
book.
love him.
And so then, and she looks at me and she goes, Hay House. And I'm like, Louise Hay. My very first healing book was bought, it was her book when I was 16. And that's in my book. The very first, I was so screwed up at 16, I needed this book called You Can Heal Your Life. And it talked about the subconscious, which is why I wanted to learn about hypnosis. Because if you can reprogram the subconscious, then you can change your core beliefs. So your life changes. So
Absolutely.
anyway, so she says that word to me, and I go home, and the next Monday, I got an extra hour and a half. And so I'm thinking, Hay House. So I go onto the website. I end up in a chat box, and I said, I need to speak to someone about a book. And they go, do you need someone a ghostwriter? I said, no, it's been written and it's been published, but I need to speak to someone about getting a book on your platform. And then she sends me a name of someone who will call me, and his name is Chris. And I tell him, I said, this is my dream. I want this book to potentially be a movie. And he goes, well, and I said, everyone that keeps reaching out to me says, I'll make you successful. It'll cost you $30,000 and we'll do this and this and this. So they're all come at you like vultures, and they're basically con artists.
Yeah, exactly.
And Goody had said to me, when someone comes at you and asks for money to help you make money, they're scam. And I said that to this guy, and he goes, well, that's not entirely true. An agent gets paid to take that manuscript around. And he says, and I don't normally do this, but you send me the memoir on Monday, I'll read it and I'll let you know what I think. And I'm like, oh my God, do I have to sell it a certain way, right? So, I mean, it's pretty great.
Yeah,
So I send it off on Monday. I sent him an actual file that is the book. Calls me the next day and he goes, that's a really good book. That's a really emotional book. That's a really well-written book. And he goes, there's nothing like this on the market. I'm not finished, but we really like it. I'll get back to you tomorrow and tell you what we think. So basically, I'm having to qualify to pay for an agent for this thing to go through this whole process. So the next day he calls me and he goes, yeah, we're going to take this book. We're going to use this book. And this is the cost for the agent. And it's under $1,000, which is unheard of. It's not a scam. And so he says, and someone will call you by such and such a name, da, 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 and it's this and this and this part of the, I don't know the right lingo. So I get that call, and he asked me a few questions, and he goes, well, would you be upset if we change some of the details in the book? I said, absolutely not. The point for me is that the message and the points in the book about healing, about overcoming,
that doesn't change.
Hope, that stays. And he goes, lots of authors they don't want it to be changed. I said, I'm not attached. My ego is not attached. I want the message to get out. If it needs to be changed somehow so it's not too intense for some people, that's okay. So he was really happy about that. And I just spoke to him today again, and he sent me the contract and everything a couple of days ago. But I said, what's the process? And he goes, well, we bring it now to the best writers and the best writers in their community, and they read it and they vet it, and then they bring it forward for like a focus group, and they all talk about the strengths, the weaknesses, what could go right, what could go wrong, and then I will get a report, and then we will decide which way to go. But they're prepping it to become a movie or a series. I'm like, yes. Well, and for me,
oh my gosh, how exciting for you. How exciting.
It's, I just go, like, it's like all of it's not been lost. And I said that to one of my therapists once when I was busy, having massive emotional pain pour out of me. And I said, I didn't know I could hurt this much. I just didn't know that it was possible. And if I knew that getting clean and sober, after I got clean and sober, that I would hurt this much, I would have taken my life. And she just looked at me. I said, I've never hurt this much, because I could be distracted, right? So I'm there, and I forget where I was going to go with that. But I said,
But
if I can help one person not hurt the way I've hurt, my suffering has not been in vain. And that was something I always stuck with. I hurt. My heart was broken well before I was 2. My heart was shattered well before I was a 2-year-old child. So I didn't have a chance. Like, it's amazing that I survived my parents because they were both mentally ill.
so would you mind if I went to your parents for a second? Are they with you still? Are they passed on? Do they know about the book, and what's that look like for them and how they relate to you now?
My father died probably about 7 years ago. And it was like his abuse and unmanaged mental illness and his trauma. It was like his body just blew out. It was like I call it a self-kill. He had no way of regulating himself. He had no way of feeling secure. He was legally blind. He was vicious to me all the way through the last however many years of my life. I knew the moment he died, I felt him float through my body. And like, he called me crying, and I said, oh, I know what time he left, because he flew through my body. I could feel him. And my mother, she was an alcoholic. And she was heavily traumatized by her family. She was born in East Germany during World War II. Her father worked for Hitler. The first 5 years of her life was World War II. Her programming was just a mess. Yes. So my mother ended up, coupling and marrying a man who they both loved each other, and they both matched each other's sexual abuse. And they were both alcoholics, and she stroked out and he died of cancer. And so she lived with me for about 4.5 years, and I helped kind of nurse her back to some degree of wellness. But then she was always trying to make me her enemy. I was the bad guy. She'd cry and I would try to help her, and then she would try to make me the villain. And I said, Mom, I'm not doing this with you. And eventually I had to have a huge blowout with my brother and around my mother. I said, I'll kill myself if she doesn't leave my home, because she robbed me of my childhood. I spent most of my life trying to fix what she did or didn't do. Yeah. And I'm in my 50s and she's still robbing me. I'm not doing it. I said no. So I had help to get her to go to a senior's home, and now she's in a different senior's home next to my brother. But my mother, she is so self-centered and so self-absorbed. And she's so broken. Like, she doesn't know about the book. And if she did, she wouldn't know what to say. And I don't think she could say.
Do you forgive her, though?
A long time ago. Yeah. I forgive her for not knowing how to love me. I forgive her for not, she had a bipolar thing or something. For no particular reason, you would be attacked. For no particular reason, you would be sort of, something terrible would happen, or you would be ignored. So I'm sad for her.
But there's a difference. There's a difference between forgiving and forgetting what's happened. It's okay, I think, that in the world for people to detach from the events and from the situation that happened, and know that that person was also somebody's child at one time who is badly broken, just as you've so eloquently pointed out. And so in all of that, and it's still okay to forgive and detach, right? And move on with the beginnings of your own true comfort and being wholly and solely you.
For me, what helped when I stopped trying to do anything I could to make her happy, then I could detach and let go. But if I was still attached to the impossible, mission impossible,
totally,
I was always failing. It was never good enough. And I realized that I'm not responsible. I'm never saying that to my brother. I'm not responsible for a family's dysfunction. I have taken this and carried this to the point that I'm at the snapping point, because I work at home. So I would go upstairs. She'd be sitting on the couch crying. And I'm like, why are you crying? And she wouldn't know. And then it would just go on to something else. And I said, I can't live like this. I didn't feel safe around her at all. And I didn't know that I didn't feel safe in general until I probably hit 52.
Yeah.
Didn't know. I was just, cruising along, being busy, going tick, tick, tick.
Yeah, I
So I
hear
was
you.
disassociated. Yeah. I was
I think
disassociated.
I think a lot of our listeners are going to resonate with what you're saying. Very completely, actually. There's a lot of people in the world that are struggling with mental health issues, that are undiagnosed. Many are diagnosed, very true.
Yeah.
And when you have a diagnosis, there's a care plan, and then there's the tools that come with the care plan to help you detach from the personalization of the behavior. So those tools are all out there. But if you have someone in your life who is behaving in a way that is, I don't want to say crazy, I think it's the wrong word, but is not capable of actualizing their own self, and is constantly still pushing that on their children or their loved ones, the survival mechanisms are not there. The tools are not there yet without that diagnosis. And for some diagnoses like narcissism, it's damn near impossible to get an actual diagnosis. Right? So how do you move forward? And the good news is there are toolkits out there for people to get support. There's Codependence Anonymous. There's what did you call it? Adult Children of Abuse, which is also of alcoholics
and dysfunctional families.
And again, even if you don't think that you necessarily belong to those categories, the tools that are there can help understand that crazy that is very difficult to understand. And so I personally, I'm not I'm not an expert on any of this stuff. My own life experience tells me that when I know that I'm talking from my chest, when I know that I'm talking high, when I know that I find myself anxious, when I have trouble sleeping, when my heart just does not feel settled, when I feel like I don't matter, or that I'm invisible, or that all of those pieces for me are the tools that tell me it's time to go get some support. And thankfully there is support out there. And thankfully you did that early on in life, right? You said 30 years, you have been, kind of along the journey of finding help. And now that you've found it, and now that you're able to move forward with that, even despite the difficult story, what do you tell yourself today? How do you console and love that person that you spent 50 years of your life with, right? What does that feel like for you?
You know what? Where I am, like, I don't identify with who the name or any of it. I just go, I am this being of I'm an energetic being of love.
Yes.
So sometimes, and I did a little bit of a meditation quite a few times, but at one point I got these really strong pink and red and white and gold crystals. My whole body was just that. And so I think, if it's true that when we leave, we just turn into dust, but we carry on. I'm like, right now I'm in one form, I'm in this form. So I don't identify with the roles or the masks that I have. I know how to do those, but I realize that's not me.
Of course. But I hear what you're saying. You don't identify with them. It's a very different mindset.
Yeah. And so at this point, I just feel like I'm like a soul on a journey, hoping to hold space for others, for them to find their own light, their own path, their own joy, their own wisdom. And to kind of, like, I don't know if you've heard of Carolyn Mace. I love her. Well, she talks about the holy language, and when we're in a connection with someone, even if we're not close, we can pray for them, pray for grace. That's holy language. And when we do that for ourselves, at some point, we stop fighting the messages that have been so normalized, and it just becomes, I'm okay. You're okay. We're safe. Something might happen, but you have to look, is it really true that what our mind is saying is true, or is it just, it's a boogeyman? So I'm in a place now where even when someone hurts my feelings, I ask them, like, why are you doing that? Like, what are you getting out of this? And that's really unkind. Don't ever do that again.
So you call them on it, which is brilliant.
Well, yeah, because otherwise I'm gonna sit there and squirm like the, squirm on the side of the hook, going, what did I do
Yes.
wrong? Are you disappointed in me or whatever? And I'm like, you know what, you don't have to like me. Like, who gives a crap? Do I care? No. I'm
Yeah.
lucky if I get another 25 solid years, and then they call them the golden years because you can't hold your urine. I am not wasting it on silly people and people looking for power plays with me.
Yeah.
I will put
I
up
hear
with
you.
it.
Woohoo. I'm with you. And I'm with
Yeah.
you, but I still find myself, I had heard recently someone was talking about my back recently. My leathers went up and I was like, wait a minute, who the crook and brilliant, I don't want to say the word, right? Do you think you are? And don't let the door shut on your backside on the way out of my life. Like I resonate with what you're saying in that regard. What scares you these days?
Living a poor life,
Yeah.
having my heart closed, being bitter and angry and scared,
Yeah.
not loving. That scares me because those are the intangibles. You can buy as much stuff as you want. It doesn't make you happy. I
Not
know
a thing.
lots of dead millionaires. I'm like, at this point, I want to let myself just shine and
Yeah.
give other people permission to do the same. Help people love themselves. If they're into withholding love and being in judgment, that's okay. But that's theirs. I'm not here to fix it. It's not my problem.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, no,
Do you ever
and I
find
mean,
your do you ever find yourself though, kind of in a situation where you think you got it mastered and damn, that lesson comes back to test you?
only time like I get the snap or the thing is if something happens and I have an emotional charge.
Yeah.
I go, oh, maybe that's my abandonment rupture. Maybe I feel humiliated. Maybe I feel like I'm not good enough, whatever it is. And I go right back to letting the feeling, no judgment, move out. I let you go. And so
Yeah.
then it doesn't space in my head. I don't need a therapist. And I just say, I let go. And that has been working for me really, really well.
Yeah, but your brain, like there's only so much real estate that the heart and the brain can take, right? There's only so much real estate. So you have now chosen to create a system within yourself that allows you to let it go, right? It's like, okay, where do I feel this in my body? What's happening here? I release to the universe. That's not my stuff, not my monster, not my monkeys, as people call it, right? And at the same time as you're
Well, it might be
radiating that
mine. It might
light,
be mine, but I'm letting it go.
sorry,
No,
say that again.
it might be mine. It might be mine, and I'm letting it go. Like, it might be mine. This is my hurt. This is my loss. This is my wounded little girl. This is the part of me that has felt that there's something wrong with me. And I can go, okay, you're allowed to let that go because it doesn't serve me to keep it.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
there's no value to me being in that place anymore. And I didn't know how to do it before.
yeah. Yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying. I really do. And as a consequence of that, your authentic self now starts to truly shine, right? Because you can identify it now. And I know that the people that are listening to this broadcast are thinking to myself, how did I get there? How can I get there too? So I'm going to ask you, how can they get there too? How I know I'm on that journey. I'm not fully there yet. I catch myself. I believe that I'm very self-aware. I'm comfortable in my own skin. And I do feel that for the most part, I'm self-aware, but every now and then I get caught up in the tangle.
Um, one of my teachers who was like a surrogate father for me said, if you actually want to help people in your life, you must have a spiritual practice.
Yes.
So you need to have a practice that every day you light a candle, and that represents your connection with your creator, your divine. And whether you have a meditative practice or a pranayama practice or a yogic practice or you read something that really speaks to you, that gets you in touch with your creator, that sets the tone for the day. Boom. And that sort of says, I'm holding space as a sacred being.
Yes.
I was taught to do that probably about 29 years ago, and I've pretty much done that every day. That didn't mean I didn't suffer. It gave me a better tool to navigate and at least have some self-awareness. And
Absolutely.
one of the books that I really love is Carolyn Mace, her recent book. It's Conversations with the Divine, and it's a beautiful book, and it's got about 100 and some odd chapters that have just a few paragraphs to really reflect on holy connection with whatever it is that you believe in. And the one that I really has also found quite lovely was the workbook for the untethered soul. Those were both fabulous books, and it's a process. But instead of being in our intellect and in our cerebral mind and trying to figure everything out from there, we need to go to a place of spirituality, because you can't outthink pain. The mind still wants revenge. The mind is still comparing, and that's where the pain comes from, the attachment.
I just want to let that message resonate for a second, because what you just said, you can't outthink pain, is something that I think that a lot of people struggle with, having that breath to wrap around. We try so honestly to rationalize the pain we've experienced and to think it away and to bandage it up and to drink it away or smoke it away or toke it away or whatever that looks like. But you can't outthink pain.
And the thing is, it's like we all hurt.
Yeah.
Everyone's hurt. We only have the opportunity to have some peace if we can make friends with the fact that we've hurt and make it okay to let ourselves grieve. We can't get stuck there, but there could be a process for grieving.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think that that's the biggest part of it too, at least in my experience anyway. In my own life, I found that the grieving process was the great healer of all things, is to let go of that perceived self that I had, or to let go of that perceived identity. As long as I was married to, as long as I did this job then, as long as, and I'm very carefully using the personal I, because I don't want to speak for other people, right? So while I understand and know that in this community, we see a lot of pain, I feel that we also have to take responsibility for our pain and try to not rationalize it away, but find the resources that are available. I think that your book is going to give people that option. Great segue for you to tell them how to get it.
Okay. If you look up my name on Facebook, you'll see my my account there, and there's a link right there to purchase it from Friesen Press, which is in Victoria.
Yes.
And that's a Vancouver Island business, and I was really proud of that. You can also go straight to Friesen Press, which is in Victoria. You can just plug in my name or the name of the book, it'll come up. And the other option is Amazon. It is on Amazon, and it's the second edition, and the book is being slated to be a movie, so it's very exciting, and I'm kind of nervous and excited at the same time. And
well, I can't wait to link to that coming up. I mean, really. Like, how cool is that?
Well, I'll tell you a secret.
Who do you think you're going to have play you?
Cameron Diaz.
Yes.
That's who I want.
Yes, I can see Cameron Diaz playing you for sure. I know that our listeners can't actually see you, but for those that watch us on YouTube and other forums will be able to see your beautiful face. We are at the end of the show already, if you can believe it. I'm shocked and gobsmacked that we're already there. And so it's really, really important to me to make sure that people know the name of your book and can go to your website. So let's get that out there real quick. And then when we come back, we'll have that life lesson that I'm really dying to hear from you. So tell me, once again, to our listeners, how do people find you?
Oh, well, ablebodyconsulting.com is my website.
That's probably the best
also,
is for them to go to ablebodyconsulting.com. And for everyone else, I'll put the links down to Friesen Press and all of that stuff into the YouTube station. It's just if they find you on Facebook, your name's not so easy to spell. So Germana Rovinelli, it is spelled as it sounds, but I think GermanaRovinelli. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Love it. All right. So, and again, if you watch this on YouTube, we'll make sure those links are out there for you. Okay, my friend, here we go. This is that deep breath moment because we just have a moment left. If you could, from everything that you've experienced through all of this, through the writing of the book, through your life experience, through the choices that you've made to learn how to self-care in a way that is so fantastic and so beautiful, what might that look like for you to share to our audience?
Teach people how to have compassion for themselves.
Yeah.
And speak up. Have boundaries, have a voice, have compassion. And that might just seem too odd, but compassion allows us to stop being cruel to ourselves, to stop not listening to the part that says, I just need a nap, you know?
Yeah.
And to speak up. Like if we don't speak up, we can't get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so true.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that you are the human that you are. I have admired you for a long, long time. I really think that you have so much gift to offer us. And I'm in such great gratitude that you came to the show today. So thank you so much. Really appreciate you being here. All right, that does it. Oh, you're welcome. That does it for another episode of Act 3 on CHLY 101.7. My guest, Germana Rovinelli, I think I said it right that time, has written an extraordinary book called We Do Recover. And you know, it serves us well as we move into the third stage of our lives. That's why we're called Act 3, is in the third stage of our lives that we get to actually give ourselves permission to truly be our authentic selves. Thanks for listening. Go out there and have a fabulous day. I know you want it. Bye for now.